Welcome to the second installment of Casella's Corner for Optometry Times. There is an adage in many disciplines of healthcare which goes along the lines of one learns more teaching a course than one does actually attending a course. This certainly proved to be true for me in recent history. I authored a course on narcotic prescribing and drug diversion, and in my research for the course I came across some staggering facts and some very interesting literature. I have extracted a few highlights and a few take-home points, of which there are many, but I've extracted three take-home points that I think are worthy of mentioning here on this forum. Number one, the opioid crisis is just that. It is a crisis. It's an epidemic, and the numbers are absolutely staggering. In the years between 1999 and 2016, the numbers of prescriptions written and filled illegally in the United States went up fourfold. However, the reports of pain remained relatively flat, relatively constant, relatively stable. So there's more opioid prescriptions being written, but there's not really more pain. And these are not typically novel new drugs. These are drugs that have been around for a good minute or two. With that said, in 2012, things really peaked. In that year, over 250 million prescriptions were written in the United States for an opioid medication. If you cross-reference that with the number of people who actually live in the United States, then you will see that that's almost enough for every man, woman, and child, U.S. citizen, to have his or her own bottle of pills for an entire year. That number has dropped off in the most recent few years, but it is still staggeringly high. Number two, the journey to addiction is just that. It's a journey. Normal, healthy people don't go out one day and say, I want to start using heroin. 3 out of 4 people who use heroin report using a legal opioid illegally, illicit use of a legal substance before they started to use heroin. So there's a gateway, there's a pathway here. And the pathway to recovery is also a journey. And we need to take care of these patients. We don't need to judge them. We need to take care of them and make sure that they're being treated. The third take-home point here that I'll mention on this forum is the fact that we as optometrists may think, well, we may not need to know all of these things. We may not need to deal with all of these things because we treat acute eye pain, which is typically a prescription for 2 to 3 days max. Most of addiction comes from chronic use of opioids, and that's not really optometry's role. Well, be that as it may, we are uniquely positioned on the forefront of healthcare to detect people who are abusing medications, who are addicts, who are in need of help. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to help these people. And it's not always an easy conversation to have, but it's a conversation worth having. So we are uniquely positioned to be able to detect abuse. And we've all seen people who have come into our offices, and you can tell when somebody's shopping around for pills. And we have an obligation to help these people and not to judge them, but to make sure that they get the treatment that they need.